In a bustling neighborhood in Lagos, Nigeria, lived Chidinma and her husband Emeka. They were a young couple who had been married for just over 2 years. Emeka was a good man, kind, reliable, and always providing for Chidinma's needs. However, he was not a fan of social media. While Chidinma's friends constantly flaunted their relationships online, capturing every smile, gift, and vacation, Emeka preferred to keep their private life private. Chidinma often felt torn, especially when her childhood friend Ada posted lavish photos of her relationship. One afternoon, Chidinma sat in her living room, scrolling through her phone. Photos of happy couples, flowers, candlelit dinners, and exotic vacations filled her screen. Each post seemed to shine with the light of perfect love, especially those of her friend Ada, who had just posted a series of photos from a weekend getaway with her boyfriend. They looked blissfully in love. She sighed, glancing over at Emeka, who was sitting across from her, focused on the evening news. "Emeka," she called, her voice filled with a slight edge. He looked up, his attention now on her. "Yes, love? Don't you ever feel like we should do more, couple things, like post pictures together, share our special moments online? Everyone else does it." Emeka raised an eyebrow, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Are you saying we don't do enough couple things? I just took you to dinner last weekend." Chidinma sighed, setting her phone down. "It's not about just going to dinner, Emeka. I mean, it's like we're living in a bubble. Look at Ada and her boyfriend. She always shares their pictures on Instagram, and everyone can see how much they love each other." Emeka chuckled softly. "Chidinma, just because I don't post everything online doesn't mean I don't love you. I just don't see the point. Isn't it enough that I'm here with you, taking care of us?" She huffed, rolling her eyes. "You don't get it, Emeka. Sometimes I just wish, I don't know, maybe that you were more like other men." Emeka's smile faded slightly and his voice grew serious. "Chidinma, I am who I am. I'd rather show you I love you every day in person than to strangers online. But if it means that much to you..." He trailed off, unsure of what more he could say. She waved her hand, dismissing the conversation. "Forget it, Emeka. You'll never understand." The rest of the evening passed in silence. Chidinma felt the weight of unspoken expectations, while Emeka, though trying to brush it off, couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. He loved Chidinma deeply, but he didn't understand why she felt the need for online validation. A week after their conversation, Chidinma still couldn't shake the thoughts that lingered from her conversation with Emeka. That afternoon, there was a knock on the door, and when Chidinma opened it, she was greeted by the familiar face of her childhood friend, Ada. "Ada, you should have called," Chidinma exclaimed, pulling her into a warm hug. "Oh, please, do I need an appointment to see my best friend?" Ada teased, her eyes twinkling. She gave Chidinma a once-over. "Ah, you're glowing, girl. Married life really suits you." Chidinma forced a smile, motioning for Ada to come inside. They settled on the couch, and Ada instantly launched into stories about her recent trip with her boyfriend, showing Chidinma pictures on her phone. She described every detail: the dinner by the beach, the thoughtful gifts, and the endless compliments her boyfriend showered on her. Chidinma tried to focus, but her heart sank as she compared her own relationship to Ada's seemingly perfect romance. As Ada continued talking, Chidinma finally voiced her thoughts. "You're so lucky, Ada," she murmured, looking down. "Your boyfriend really loves you. I see the way he shows you off on social media. He's a good man, but sometimes I want more." Ada paused, tilting her head thoughtfully. "More?" she echoed, a sly smile forming on her lips. "Chidinma, you know that nothing good comes without a little extra effort. If you want Emeka to dote on you, sometimes you have to go beyond the ordinary." Chidinma raised an eyebrow, confused. "What do you mean?" Ada leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if she were sharing a precious secret. "I know someone who can help, a spiritual man. He's very powerful and can make Emeka more affectionate, more romantic. All we'd need is something personal of his, like, say, one of his boxer shorts." Chidinma's eyes widened in shock. She pulled back, shaking her head. What? Ada, are you serious? You're asking me to take my husband's underwear? That's insane. Ada chuckled softly, reaching out to pat Chidinma's arm. Relax, babes. It's not as crazy as it sounds. This man just needs something personal to connect with his spirit. It's harmless. All he'll do is pray, and you'll start to see changes. Believe me, it's worth it. Chidinma hesitated, looking away. I don't know, Ada. Emeka is a good husband. This just feels wrong. Ada shrugged, leaning back. Look, Chidinma, I'm not forcing you, but if you want Emeka to be the man of your dreams, to show the world how much he loves you, then sometimes you have to be bold. You see the way my boyfriend treats me, don't you? Chidinma bit her lip, thinking back to the pictures Ada had shown her. Moments filled with affection, care, and pride. She glanced back at her friend, who was watching her expectantly. All right, she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. I'll think about it. Ada grinned, satisfaction flashing in her eyes. Good girl, let me know when you're ready. As Ada left that afternoon, Chidinma felt a strange mixture of guilt and anticipation. Part of her wanted to forget the whole conversation, but another part, the part that longed for Emeka's attention and admiration, couldn't let it go. The next few days were a swirl of emotions for Chidinma. She would sit in silence, staring at Emeka as he read the newspaper or busied himself around the house, wondering if he would ever become the man she saw in her dreams, the man who would declare his love for her to the world, who would make her feel special in ways she had only seen through the lenses of her friends' social media posts. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, Emeka noticed her distracted look and reached out, gently touching her hand. Chidinma, he began, his voice tender, is everything okay? She looked up, forcing a smile. Of course, Emeka, I'm fine. But Emeka wasn't convinced. I know something's on your mind. You've been quiet lately, distant even. You know you can talk to me, right? Chidinma felt a pang of guilt. Here was a man who genuinely cared for her, a man who was there every day, ensuring her comfort and happiness. But the longing for something extra gnawed at her. She brushed off his concern with a quick nod and changed the subject. That night, as she lay awake in bed, Ada's words played over and over in her mind. If you want Emeka to be the man of your dreams, to show the world how much he loves you, then sometimes you have to be bold. With a heavy heart, Chidinma finally made her decision. The following afternoon, she messaged Ada, I'm ready. When can we meet? Ada replied almost immediately, as if she had been waiting for this. Perfect. Come to my place tomorrow and bring the item. The next day, Chidinma found herself at Ada's apartment, clutching a small bag containing Emeka's boxer shorts. She felt sick with guilt, her mind racing with doubts, but she forced herself to remain calm as Ada welcomed her in with a bright smile. Ah, Chidinma, you did well, my dear, Ada said, taking the bag from her and tucking it into her purse. You'll see, it'll be worth it. Chidinma watched Ada carefully as she asked, So, what happens now? Ada waved her hand dismissively. The man will pray, that's all. He'll connect with Emeka's spirit, make him more attentive. You'll start to see the changes soon. Chidinma swallowed, nodding slowly. And nothing bad will happen, right? Ada laughed, shaking her head. Of course not. It's just a way to channel energy. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Chidinma left Ada's apartment feeling a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. As she drove back home, she kept telling herself that she was doing this for the good of her marriage, that soon Emeka would be the loving, affectionate husband she had always dreamed of. A week passed, and Chidinma began to notice subtle changes in Emeka's behavior. He seemed more distant, less inclined to engage in their usual conversations, and he often came home later than usual, offering vague excuses that left her feeling uneasy. One evening, Chidinma couldn't hold back her frustration. She approached Emeka, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Emeka, what's going on with you? She asked, her voice edged with tension. He looked up at her, surprise flashing across his face. What do you mean? You've been acting strange lately, coming home late, barely talking to me. Is there something you're not telling me? Emeka's face hardened, his voice growing cold. Chidinma, don't start. I've been working hard. I don't need this right now. The coldness in his tone was like a slap, and Chidinma recoiled, hurt and confused. Emeka had never spoken to her like this before. As he turned away, her mind raced back to Ada's words, remembering her friend's reassurance that things would get better. The days continued, and Emeka's behavior only worsened. He began avoiding her altogether, sometimes not coming home at all. Chidinma's heart was breaking. This wasn't the attention she had hoped for. It felt more like punishment. Desperate, she called Ada, her voice shaking with fear. Ada, I don't understand what's happening. He's changed completely. It's like he hates me. Ada's response was calm, almost dismissive. Chidinma, this is normal. Sometimes things get worse before they get better. Give it time, okay? But Ada, he's not even talking to me anymore. I'm scared. Ada sighed, her tone growing impatient. Trust the process, Chidinma. You wanted change, didn't you? As Chidinma hung up the phone, a cold realization began to settle in her heart. She had wanted Emeka to change, but this was something entirely different. The weeks that followed were like a nightmare for Chidinma. Emeka had become a stranger in her own home. He no longer looked at her with warmth, and his once gentle tone was now laced with irritation, even contempt. She tried everything, cooking his favorite meals, dressing up, being as pleasant as possible, but nothing seemed to bring him back to her. One evening, Emeka didn't come home at all. Chidinma sat up waiting, her heart pounding with a mixture of anger and fear. When he finally walked through the door the following morning, he barely acknowledged her, heading straight for the bedroom without a word. Chidinma followed him, unable to contain her frustration. Emeka, where were you? Do you know how worried I was? This isn't you. What's going on? He turned to her, his expression cold and unfeeling. Don't start, Chidinma. I don't owe you an explanation. Chidinma's heart shattered at his words. She could hardly recognize the man before her. Emeka, please, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. If there's something wrong, let's talk about it. He simply shook his head, pushing past her without another word. Chidinma sank onto the bed, her mind racing. She couldn't understand how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. She remembered Ada's assurance that things would improve, but every day seemed to pull them further apart. Desperate for answers, Chidinma called Ada again, her voice trembling. Ada, I don't know what's happening. Emeka is like a different person. He barely looks at me. He doesn't come home. He doesn't even care anymore. There was a brief silence before Ada responded, her tone flat and uninterested. Chidinma, I told you this would take time. Maybe he's just realizing a few things. Realizing what? Chidinma demanded, frustration building. He's acting like he doesn't even love me anymore. This wasn't what I wanted. Ada sighed, her voice laced with impatience. Chidinma, maybe you were right. Emeka isn't the romantic type, and maybe you're just realizing it now. A chill ran through Chidinma as she listened to her friend's dismissive tone. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. One afternoon, Chidinma was out running errands when she decided to stop by a small cafe to clear her head. As she waited in line, she glanced toward the back of the cafe and felt her heart stop. There, at a secluded table, sat Emeka, with Ada. They were deep in conversation, laughing softly, their faces close as if they shared an intimate secret. Chidinma felt her hands tremble, a sickening feeling rising in her stomach. She watched in horror as Emeka reached across the table, his hand brushing Ada's cheek in a way he hadn't touched Chidinma in weeks. She stumbled out of the cafe, her mind reeling with the truth she could no longer deny. Her own best friend, the one she had confided in, had betrayed her. The man she had trusted with her heart had been stolen from her by the very person who had claimed to help. Unable to contain her fury, Chidinma waited for Emeka to return home that evening, her face pale but determined. When he finally walked through the door, she was standing in the middle of the living room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "We need to talk," she said, her voice icy. Emeka glanced at her, clearly uninterested. "Not now, Chidinma. I'm tired." "Make time," she demanded, her voice rising. "I know you've been seeing Ada." At the mention of Ada's name, Emeka's expression shifted to one of annoyance. "What I do and who I see is none of your business." Chidinma's heart broke all over again at his words, but she pushed forward. "None of my business? Emeka, I am your wife. How could you do this to me? With her of all people?" He shrugged, his indifference cutting deeper than any words could. "Ada understands me in ways you never could. She doesn't nag, doesn't try to change me. Maybe I made a mistake with this marriage." A cold, hollow feeling settled in Chidinma's chest as she listened to him. All the years of love, trust, and commitment seemed to vanish in that single moment. She realized that the changes she had wanted, the improvements she had hoped for, had come at a cost far greater than she had ever imagined. Without another word, Emeka turned and walked away, leaving Chidinma standing alone in the silence of their once happy home. The next day, Chidinma found herself outside Ada's apartment, her fists clenched, determination coursing through her veins. She couldn't let this betrayal go unanswered. Taking a deep breath, she knocked on the door, and after a few moments, Ada opened it, her face a picture of surprise. "Chidinma," she said, feigning innocence. "What are you doing here?" Chidinma stepped inside, her gaze fierce. "You know exactly why I'm here." Ada closed the door, crossing her arms with a nonchalant shrug. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Stop pretending, Ada," Chidinma snapped, her voice shaking with anger. I saw you with Emeka at the cafe. You planned this, didn't you? All that talk about prayers and making him love me more. You just wanted him for yourself." Ada's expression shifted, her calm demeanor breaking into a smirk. "And what if I did?" she replied, her voice cold. "Chidinma, you were so busy envying everyone else's life that you didn't even realize what you had. Emeka deserves someone who appreciates him, not someone constantly whining about social media." Chidinma's fists clenched as she struggled to hold back tears. "How could you do this to me? I trusted you, Ada. You were my friend." "Honestly, Chidinma, you were so easy to fool. You were practically begging me to take him off your hands." Chidinma blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Ada laughed, shaking her head. "Oh, poor naive Chidinma. You thought I was this happy, lucky woman with a perfect relationship. You envied me, didn't you? Always comparing your life to mine." Chidinma's stomach twisted with confusion and rage. "So, what? You wanted my husband because you were jealous?" Ada's eyes narrowed, her smirk twisting into something cruel. "Jealous? Of what?" "There's no boyfriend, Chidinma. All those pictures, the trips, the gifts, it was all a lie, just a show for social media. I staged every single post to make you and everyone else think I was living the perfect life." Chidinma took a step back, shock washing over her. You lied? You posted all those things just to pretend you were in a relationship?" Ada laughed again, a hollow sound that sent chills down Chidinma's spine. "People believe what they see online, Chidinma. I just gave them what they wanted. And you? Well, you wanted it too. You were so busy trying to keep up with me that you never noticed what was right in front of you. All I had to do was plant the seed, and you handed Emeka over on a silver platter." Chidinma's chest tightened as she realized the full extent of Ada's manipulation. Her friend had preyed on her insecurities, using them to steal the one person who had truly loved her. "You did all of this just to prove a point? To make me feel inadequate?" Ada shrugged, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "Call it a reality check. You were always so eager to have what others had, so desperate for validation. Maybe now you'll learn that envy is a dangerous game." Days turned into weeks, and Chidinma began to pick up the pieces of her life. She moved out of the house she had shared with Emeka, finding a small apartment where she could heal in peace. Her family and friends offered their support, rallying around her during her darkest moments. One evening, as she sat alone in her new apartment, Chidinma reflected on everything she had gone through. She realized that her desire for validation, her envy of others' relationships, and her obsession with appearances had nearly destroyed her. She had been so focused on what she thought she lacked that she had failed to appreciate the love she had once had. Through her journey, Chidinma learned a valuable lesson. She realized that comparing herself to others, envying what others seemed to have, had only brought her pain and led her down a dangerous path. The constant need for validation had nearly cost her everything. Now she knew that true happiness came from embracing who she was and finding contentment within herself, rather than seeking approval from others. She had been blinded by the illusion of other people's lives, but in losing that illusion, she had found herself. Chidinma's journey is a powerful reminder. Happiness cannot be found in the curated images of others' lives. It lives within us in moments of gratitude, resilience, and self-acceptance. And as for Amika and Ada, their story would be left to its own unraveling, as all webs of deceit eventually do. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales like this, please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.